I'd like to welcome everyone this morning to the Metro Nashville Archives. I appreciate you coming out on a Friday afternoon or Friday at noon like this to be a part of this discussion on the national basketball tournaments. I think you'll enjoy this today. I had a lot of fun putting it together. When I first went into this a little bit, Ronnie Lawson came by the archives and brought the Legends Reunion program and talked a little bit about it. He had Dr. Thompson's thesis, and in reading that, and there's the Nashville Archives is supposed to collect and preserve the history of Nashville, and in reading that, it's a fascinating history. And so we wanted to do something to let Nashville know exactly the history of Nashville and the things that went on here with basketball tournaments and the sports that we have here. We have quite a legacy here of that. And so I appreciate everybody coming today. Feel free to ask questions. Our panelists, our coaches and players, and we've got Mr. Ellis, who's the reunion coordinator for the Legends Reunion. He's volunteered to be our coordinator. I had Dr. Thompson was going to be our coordinator, and he called and was not able to make it. And so when he came in, I thought, well, there's a likely candidate. So he got drafted. So he's here, and I appreciate him doing that. I want to thank Ronnie Lawson for some of the materials on the wall are from his personal collection. We've got some things from the archives. What we try to do is bring the archives collections out and highlight those. And local collectors, folks that have materials that can enhance our collections, we like to let them bring their things so they can showcase their things, and we can do an exhibit that involves the community. And that's what we want to do. And I want to thank him for his material. I want to thank Mr. Lennox back there from the Pearl High Archives, the Alumni Archives. He let us borrow that magnificent trophy over there. And I think he's going to keep a real careful eye on me for the next few days, but that's okay. So it's a wonderful archives. You have an opportunity to go over there and take a look. It's really nice. I'd like to recognize the members of council that are here today. Thank you for coming. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Ellis at this time, and we'll carry on with the program.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming today. We're going to have some fun, and the reason we're going to have some fun is this is one of my favorite topics. It had a profound effect on my life from the time that I was in high school and graduated, and basketball taught me a lot about teamwork, gave me a lot of character, especially when my coach used to run us laps to get us in conditioning, and at some point in time, from the beginning to the end, the 50 laps became 500 laps. It's just kind of like a fisherman's story. Okay. First of all, I want to cover how we're going to cover the forum today. I'm going to try to give you a quick overview of the reason for the reunion and why. And then and a little bit of the history, and for about 25 minutes. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then we will come back and we'll finish up with the panel at 10 minutes, and then we'll open up for questions and answers from the audience for the last 15 minutes. Next, I'd like to introduce the members of the panel. Mr. Walter Fisher, a graduate of Pearl High School, 1966. Coach Dave Whitney, renowned Alcornite coach at Alcorn for about 27 years. Played for Lexington Dunbar, was on the all-tournament team for Lexington Dunbar in 1948, came to Byrd High, coached our team in 1961 to the national championship. Next is Mr. Harry Gilmore, Pearl, 1961. I think he was on some of the national championship teams. And Mr. Booker White graduated Pearl 1959, and the picture that you see on the front of the cover, I had to give the best of the best to, and so he's on on this picture.
Gilmore is also.
Mr. Gilmore is also, yes. Well, I could name everyone right now, but we'll get into that. What I want to do now is to cover the reason for the reunion. In February 28th, or in December, January last year, I got a call from Paul Kaharski of the Tennessean, sports writer. He wanted to do an article, and so he had called and interviewed me as well as 20 other people. And when he had finished with that article, I asked him to give me the names of the interviewees, and so he did. And he said, I'll extract one promise from you, and that is that you involve Ron Jr., because he was so helpful in getting memorabilia for me to use. That article came out on February 28th, and so I started calling the 20 people. I called most of them, and they said that would be absolutely exciting. At that time, it was 44 years we had never had a reunion. So I started working with Ron Jr. and Dr. Thompson, who did his dissertation at LSU, and we've been working on this for about 9 months now. We formed a committee. We went over to Pearl High School alumni meeting, and then next we went to the OVC. Because we didn't have any money, it was suggested that we wait until next year. And I said, well, we could wait, but it could be next year. So what we did is we said we would form a union or with the OVC, and they agreed to sell us tickets at a certain price so we could pay for our web page, and which was done in June, which we started on our 32-page booklet, and we formed a committee from the Pearl High School group, and we started working. None of us knew how much work it was. If you try to go out to 20 states and find every basketball team and every basketball player, you cannot do it with a volunteer group. But I have had, and you will see in the notebook here, some very, very loyal people that have really worked with me for no compensation at all. I don't know why they take the punishment, but we at about halfway point decided there is no way that we're going to reach all of these people. And so I guess I kind of started listening. Sometimes I'm a little hard-headed, but they told me that wasn't going to be. So then we concentrated on reaching the 17 teams that had participated from Pearl High School and the 4 championship teams in Nashville, because it was an easy thing for them to be able to come to the reunion and to join in the reunion. And what we did, and what Alice Epperson and Marguerite Chesser did, they contacted every newspaper in every state where the schools were located, asking them to hit the website and to come and participate. This first year has been difficult. We haven't had as much participation outside, but we've generated talk all over the Southeast. Got a call from Raleigh-Durham newspaper in Pensacola, Florida, newspaper in Danville, Connecticut. There's a little old lady up there whose email is Emma Rose. She's from the school in Danville, Kentucky, and I just can't recall it right now, but we've had conversations. She won't be able to be here this year, but I have talked back and forth with her on trying to make the tournament. We started with Doc Thompson's dissertation, and we put some history in it. National Negro High School basketball turned into 2 pages of history with a picture of Kean's little garden. We then had the committee down for each state that you could call someone to get some information, contact information. Then we had championships by year. From 1929 in Hampton, Virginia, the score was 22-19. Can you imagine that? Ronnie would have scored that much in 8-minute quarter. To the last one, Booker T. Washington, Montgomery, Alabama, 71-56 over Temple. I traveled last week to Memphis to Booker T. Washington School. I was trying also to talk to the Universal Life Insurance Company. They provided those trophies from 19 1945 to 1964 in Nashville. That company has been gobbled up by other major insurance companies. None of the family is alive, and the building is not even there. We were not able to get them to participate this year, but in both cases, in Clarksville and in Memphis, they asked us please to come back if we continue with the reunion and give them a little bit more time. One of the things we wanted to do is to have a little interactive Negro history. It was suggested at one point that we have the reunion at Tennessee A&I or at Fisk, and I wanted this to be a part of American history. And one of the things you have to do to make Black history a part of American history is you have to put it in front of America. And America means Black and white, all nationalities, so that it can be picked apart and scrutinized, and then it becomes part of American history. If it stays in the Black community, it can still only be Black history. After we formed the committee and we were able to go about contacting as many people as we could, I finished up the booklet about the end of November, and we started selling tickets and we started selling booklets. We have not been as successful as we want to be, and part of the problem is you have to spend a lot of money on advertising to cover. And we relied on a lot of different ways to try to get the word out, but we're thankful to have this forum to be able to, at least at the last minute, get some more information out to all the people. The OVC has been very cooperative. On the day, the agenda for the reunion, on Friday we have a luncheon at Sweats from 11 to 2. That night we have a memorial service at Gordon Memorial, reception and a short memorial service. We'll be there at 9:30 in the morning at the GAC to set up our displays. We'll have displays that you can touch and feel, and we'll have displays that you can only look at. We'll have a registration table for the foundation, and we'll have a seating area if we can get Sam Jones or Elston Howard. They were players in this National Negro High School tournament. Elston from Vashon High School in Nashville, and Sam from Laurinburg Institute in North Carolina. And there are many other names. We sent a copy to the NBA commissioner, and because basically from 1929 to 1967, this was the precursor, whether it be coaches, players, or mentors that fed into the National Basketball Association. So we take a lot of credit for that. That pretty much is the history of why we're here. It's been 45 years, and we want to get together. And basically, this is not for recognition of any individual. It's for recognition of family, and it's recognition of team. So what we want to do now is to we'll go to the panel, and I first will ask Coach David Whitney on playing in the tournament in 1948, his perspective, coaching the championship in 1961, and a reflection on how it has affected his players over the years. Coach Whitney.
Well, certainly, LM. It was something that you always wanted to do. Back in those days, am I able to say that? Back in those days, if you won a state tournament, that as far as you could go, and that's the best that you could do. But when the National High School tournament came into being, then you had something else to look forward to. And it was just a great godsend for us. And I guess I'm one of the fortunate few that's been blessed to be able to play in it and make an all-tournament team and then carry a team back and won the tournament. That's not important. But what was important, and it's not the idea that was important, but it was the matriculation that happened that was important. Anybody can have an idea, but you don't have somebody to make that idea work, then it's a very unfortunate situation. I have to salute Dr. Davis, the president of Tennessee State. He was very instrumental in this, very instrumental, because if he did not say so, it would not have been. And then you had all the coaches in the city of Nashville that helped. You had the athletic director, and I forget his name at that time at Tennessee State. They were very instrumental in doing that. And then, of course, all the coaches have to be congratulated too, because and the principals of each high school had to be congratulated, because there was no money given back in those days. You had to come from Chicago, you had to come from North Carolina, you had to come from Louisiana, the high school, you'd have to come from Texas. So it wasn't just a one-person thing. A lot of people were, many people were instrumental in making this thing happen. As far as the kids were concerned during that time, they were ecstatic about it. I know my ball club went there 4 times, and they looked forward to going. It was another thing for us to get a little further. You know, kids at that age, they always want to do something better. And even us now, we want to do something better. And it was just a great thing for them if to win a state tournament. That's the only way you could qualify. But, of course, some instances, when they didn't have enough money, the state champion didn't have enough money to come to the National High School Tournament, they chose a second team. and then when they had the conflicts, they had a playoff before they could come. So it wasn't an easy situation, but it's a situation that became a great situation. If you could go down the list and see all the famous NBA players, and let me tell you, NFL players that played in the National High School Tournament, you would be amazed. And so I'm very glad that Dr. Thompson came out with his thesis concerning this, and I think everyone who's interested in basketball should have a copy of it. All right, that should answer the first one, Ellen. The second one, you go another mile. The high school tournament, your high school tournament was 1 mile. But when the National High School Tournament came along, you added another mile. And everybody's looking for that other mile. Can I get a mile further? And that's what they thought about. Because, you know, it was a situation where we've got to win the state tournament, because if we don't win the state tournament, we can't get to the National High School Tournament. And I'm guilty of that myself, because I wanted to go myself. So the 500 laps he talked about, sometimes they grew into 1,000. You know, a 3 o'clock practice sometimes grew to a 5 a.m. practice. And sometime when there was sun shining, there was 2 inches of snow at practice. So it was just a great thing for all the black high schools in the 20-odd states that participated in it. As far as the kids are concerned, I think it gave them a future where someone could look at them a little longer, where they could go into major schools. Now, I'm not one to, praise all the major schools, because you can get an education at any school if you want it. You don't have to go to Harvard to get an education. You can go right to Fisk if you want one. So I'm not hung up on the big schools. But there was a lot of talent there, and this talent was sapped because during that time, when you threw a 4-year scholarship, and they had 4-year scholarships then, when you threw a 4-year scholarship, and your school could only give you 1-year scholarship, they were prudent. They took the 4-year one. So in everything that I've been associated with the National High School Tournament, it's been a great thing. And I'm just glad that it's revived, and I'm just hoping that we can get more individuals all over the country to participate in this endeavor, and I hope it can expand in future years.
Thank you, Coach Whitney. We talked last night. Coach Whitney came in, and I asked him about the championships and playing after high school and what did it mean. And what I learned from it is that we used to have to dress when we went in high school. If we didn't have a tie, we had to borrow our dad's tie. Some guys came in their suit coats were, I mean, they may have had on khakis, but their suit coats were a little big because they bought them from their uncle. But he insisted that we dress. We learned character. We learn how to conduct ourselves, and that's one of the things besides basketball that we got coming up, and really most of all, how to work in a team atmosphere and help each other, because and I don't want to take too much time away from Pearl High because the guys will start nudging me. We were not the best team in 1961, but we wanted it more and we worked harder. And we took big teams, and we didn't let their big men get any further from the top of the free throw line for the top of the free throw line. And so we ran them to death. And that was because he had ran us to death. And he showed us that we could accomplish more than we thought we could accomplish. Okay, next on the panel, I would like to have Mr. Harry Gilmore. And what I'd like to do is have Mr. Gilmore talk on what the 4 championships at Pearl meant to him, his family, his teammates, and the city of Nashville, if he would speak on that subject.
First of all, the 4 national championships that we were able to win comes through the thing of tradition. I think it was every young guy's aspiration, due to the tradition of Pearl High, to have the opportunity to put the red and white on. So this is something it just almost drive you crazy, just being able to be a part of it. And then the guys that were on the team, it wasn't because we were the best, we were the fortunate ones, because we have something like 125 guys go off of the team. In fact, during Booker's time, my time, we had some guys that were stars in junior high, never able to play over there. And then the thing of academics came into play. The rule, one of Coach Gupton's rules was no pass, no play. So we had some academic casualties. Some guys were never able to play under those circumstances. But being able to win, to get everything started, we had teams to go before I hadn't gotten there. You had people like you had Teddy Leonard, Hank Kean, Bobby Gillum. We can go on some of the peoples that played before we'd gotten there, but going again, it was all the tradition. And one of the greatest things about it, you could sit here and speak on it, but the only way you'd have the field to really see and enjoy it, you'd have to have been there. And the unfortunate thing is, during that time, we never were able to film anything. So unless you were there, you never had the fulfillment to be able to see those things. And part of what helped us a lot in able to win was the training that Coach Whitney and Coach Gupton had pretty much the same philosophy in terms of coaching. Hard work, desire. I mean, these guys would totally just run you to death. But what you did, one of the key things we did, the warm-up they had was so awesome that they would never bring the teams on the floor till we finished. Because the guys we'd have dunking the ball and the crowd would be into it. It was just devastating for a team to come in there. And before we take the floor, we had a big old tiger where the team would burst it open over top, Tiger had blood in his mouth, and the team, and over top they have Tiger's next meal, and whoever team was come out. So usually people, coaches always have their team just wait, just let them finish up before we come out there and watch them, because we'd be one of them guys, we just stand there looking. But being able to be a part of, being able to be a part of that national championship is one of the greatest things it was, because that was utopia, and that was the max. That was as far as you could go, and to be a part of that elite class, it's just overwhelming. It's pretty hard to say. Going back again, you just have to, the experience you had you just have to have been there and played it to really enjoy it and get the fulfillment of it. This is a thing. It's unfortunate that it took so long for everybody to realize what was going on at that time, but you were saying something about the lack of participation. You have to look at 44 years ago. I got 6 guys that played and dead. So this has a lot to do with it too. We had a lot of depth, and there's no telling. As you look at these rosters and go across the country, you probably don't have 2 or 3 guys living off these teams now. I think one of the first ones, and I played with him for a while, Marcus Haynes. He's in New York, but I was unable to contact him. He's still living. And he was one of the people that played in the National High School tournament out of Oklahoma. I just want to sum it up. But it's just a great thing. Then too, probably the greatest thing the greatest thing overall was being a part of the Pearl High tradition. And I think that was the success of the overall program. It was so much tradition that took place, spirit, life, and it was just something to look forward to. That's pretty much summed it up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilmore. One other follow-up question. If you take yourself, Pearl High, and compare it to a Haynes High School who played and never won, what was the recognition factor that you had over in Nashville versus, I don't even remember the names of the guys on the Haynes team, but I remember some of you guys. What was the recognition factor? Could you comment a little bit on that?
Pretty much the recognition factor was, you had great, opposed to the way it is now, when Pearl High played, if you didn't get that 6 o'clock at the JV game, you didn't get in. I mean, it was a full house every night. And dealing with, in terms of comparing with Haynes, that wasn't one of their fortes in terms of basketball. They always play well in football, but Pearl High, just tradition, is known for basketball. Even if you even I went to the military, anytime you go out of service, even California, where are you from? Nashville. You know anything about Pearl High? It was just a thing that people, it was an institution just like all across the country. Everybody pretty much knew about Pearl High. And that came into being because we played teams like St. Elizabeth out of Chicago, Illinois. That was one of the premier schools. Out of the state of Illinois, they had Arthur Hicks, All-American, went to Seton Hall. You had guys like that. And to compare with Haynes, they just didn't have everybody had their own tradition, but they just didn't have the fire and the spirit and the support that we had, right, maybe in the inner city, because that was the max.
I was trying to slant it more toward when you and Booker, when you guys walk the street, and for what you've done over the years, you're on the golf course. Most of the people know who you guys are, don't they? Yeah. Okay, and that's pretty much, that carries on. And when I'm in Clarksville, most of the people, at least the older people, know who I am. Now, not all the young ones, but you carry that recognition with you throughout life. Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. I asked Booker, these guys are my age. We got a youngster sitting over there on the other end. I asked Booker to speak on, as a player, how it affected him in Nashville and how it affected him professionally in terms of opportunities, in terms of recognition, those things.
Well, I could echo a lot of the things that Harry spoke upon. It was a great experience to be at Pearl High during that era, and as you mentioned, we were very visible in the community. People would come up, and because of being a part of those teams, people that you didn't know would come up, and they seem as though they just wanted to be a part of that happening. And it was a great time. I even had situations, you mentioned something about how it affect my family. I know when my kids were going to Whites Creek High School, and I had two cheerleaders. They didn't play sports, but they were cheerleaders. And sometimes they would come home and they would say, Coach so-and-so was on me in class because he didn't think I was doing something, and he would mention to me what a good athlete you were. And they got kind of tired of that, you know. And I said, well, you know, that's don't worry about it. But I was glad about that they were getting the academics. And as Harry also mentioned, Coach Gupton emphasized academics. And he had a saying that he would say to us, and he emphasized sportsmanship. And he would say that sportsmanship was not that easily defined, but very recognizable. And that was something that stuck with us too. He was a stickler for that. And he was interested in us as individuals, not only on the court, but he wanted us to succeed in life, as you related to Coach Whitney. They were similar in their motivation of their players. As far as a career, I worked for Metro Parks. I retired as superintendent of recreation, sports, and athletics. And I was very fortunate because athletics was a big part of my life, and I was able to remain involved in athletics through my job. So oftentimes I was doing things and involved with things that I could have maybe still been involved with and just going around and viewing and what have you. But that was something that sometimes I said, well, you know, I'm getting paid for doing something that I really like doing, and that was a blessing. Even though the headaches that went along with it, but the other side of the coin was it was just a blessing, and a lot of people that I was involved with that participated in the program, they would mention about, I remember when you played with Pearl, and I didn't realize I had that many people that were my age that were still involved. A lot of them were coaches and what have you. But because of the visibility of Pearl High and the successes that we experienced, it made us very visible, and I'm sure in some ways it created some inroads with vocation and other opportunities.
Thank you, Booker. And that's interesting. I always thought that somewhere in the high schools they should teach interviewing, they should teach how to dress for an interview, and that's one of the most important things when you get to be a senior. You've gone through 12 years of high school, and then you go out there to sell yourself, and you haven't honed those skills. And one of the things that we did get as coach, the coaches gave us on all team sports how to work with people, how to conduct yourselves. In many instances, we had a dress code back when now the NBA is now just starting to get a dress code. So all those things helped us in terms of professionalism, dealing with people as we moved up the ladder, organization, and things like that. We're going to pick on the youngest member of the forum. Mr. Walter Fisher, and he's a 1966 graduate of Pearl, And what I wanted him to do is to talk on the perspective of when we lost the tournament. The tournament was in Kingsville Garden at Tennessee A&I from 1945 to 1964. In 65, it moved to Montgomery, Alabama, as the Brown versus Board had come about, and so states were absorbing the black schools into their state organizations, which negated postseason play. So, you know, it was a win-lose kind of a situation, but I would like for Mr. Fisher, if he would, to give us a perspective on that.
Okay. First of all, let me recognize two guys in here that was very instrumental to me and my playing days coming out of Pearl. Mr. Frank Pillar sitting over here on the side. He was the first three-letter man to come through Pearl High School. He was also that kid over in Watkin Park that they never could knock down with that dummy. He was very, very inspirational to me. And Mr. Harry Gilmore, I mean, it was unbelievable. I wanted to walk like him. I wanted to catch like him. I was playing sandlock football. I wouldn't put Fisher on the back. I wrote Gilmore. So these guys were very instrumental to me. And every time we see each other, I mention that about them. Also, Frank played 3 sports, but I played 4. Now, moving on to, I was fortunate enough to play on 3 straight state championship teams, 64, 65, and the big one in 66. That transition from 66 was a very interesting time for as the state was concerned, because I had an opportunity in 64 to play in the national, and they cut it out in 65 where they moved it. The transitional at that particular time, you know, in our community at that particular time, I mean, we had lost Malcolm and we had lost John, and we was looking for something to feel proud about. We was kind of dragging a little bit. So in 65, they did an experiment. That's what I called it. We played Father Ryan, and we sold out municipal auditorium down there. We got beat by a point, but I tell you what, that year spawned, I think, the integrations between the TSAA, because the character that was in that building that night, and they asked me often, what do you remember about that time? I said, well, not too much of anything. I know some of the guys from Ryan's are doctors and lawyers and have contracts and construction company, they're millionaires, but the most things that I remember about that night was when we came and we started the showtime. That means we had about 10 out of the 12 that could dunk the basketball. And once one started, and that whole auditorium, white and black, blend in with the woo. That was the most one of the most traumatic experiences I've had coming through the state tournament. Now, in 66, the character-wise, how Ridley had us, we knew what we was up against. A lot of folks in our community who said, yeah, once you get to the white kids, man, y'all gonna roll over and lay dead. Y'all done beat everything from East Tennessee to West Tennessee. They gonna put you out there at Vanderbilt, and one side's gonna be black and one side's gonna be white. Y'all gonna choke. We never looked at that like that. We had went something like 29-0 before we got there. The same thing happened out there. The dunking started, electrified the gym. But in the semifinals, we was playing, I think, Stratford or somebody. Perry Waters, James Douglas, and myself. Joe Herbert had got a breakaway. And Joe was known for blowing layups. So we knew what was going to happen at that particular time. He was going to come off, and we was all going to go back and flush it back. Well, we as Joe blew it, and all 3 of us went up there and had the same thing in mind. And after we got there, we kind of looked at each other. After we was hanging on the rim. Well, I'm saying, well, somebody better let go. So by the time we let go, it bent. I have that picture in my living room right now. And they stopped the game for about 45 minutes. the first thing popped up in my mind, you know, being a teenager coming out of, you know, oh man, we done come out to Vanderbilt gym and tore up the gym. You know, coach, we sorry, we did that, you know, but all they said, just go take us 45 minutes to get this taken care of. And oh, by the way, please stay off the wing. We never did dunk no more the rest of that tournament. But leading up to what your question was asking, the transition was, I had the opportunity to see and play against some of the best high school black basketball players, I think in the world, man. With that national tournament out there, I was just a sophomore. I was just in 10th grade when I had the opportunity to play out there. But we normally take care of things here at home, city-wise, and we go out. We get out of Memphis. We had some tough teams out of Memphis. We beat out of Memphis. But to experience the kids from Florida, Georgia, Chicago, New York, in that national thing was something very, very, very special for me as a young player coming up. I remember my first time when I got a chance to come in. I was in awe. The names would come up on the back thing, Pearl High against so and so and so and so. We get out there, we do our thing, and as a freshman basketball player, I wasn't really expecting on playing that much, but my number was called, and I got out there, and I had raspberries and butterflies and everything else, but I hit one jump shot, and the rest was history. But as we continued on to that, stop, Booker, you know how that is. I was a shooter. They told me don't come under the basket. Perry Wallace and James Douglas said, don't even come under here, Slim. Don't you get we got this. You in the way. Hey, well, I developed an outside shot and I didn't go back up under that. But I tell you, I enjoyed that particular time, and like I tell my son, Junior, that is very fortunate to play on 3 state championship teams. Some kids don't experience one, but at Pearl High, we was a feeder from Washington, outside of Harry. The rest of us came from Washington. Booker didn't.
I came
But
from
you came
Meggs.
Meggs, okay. So it was a thing, and it was a tradition. I watched Frank play, I watched Harry play, and I couldn't wait to get over there to play. And I'm pretty sure somebody that came behind me, watched me play, couldn't wait to get over there to play. I mean, in North Nashville, it was no other high school in North Nashville but Pearl High. And it was just one of those things, in the time, like Harry said, you would have had to been there to experience that, to see the love and the camaraderie that we folk in North Nashville had during that period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. And just adding a little bit on, as I added on the front of the cover, it says legends in our own minds. Because no matter what you put on that paper, we were always better, and the fish was always bigger that we caught in our own minds than it could be written on paper. And that's how it will always be. We just want to share it with the rest of the world, our enthusiasm about it, and we want recognition for those players in that era somewhere in the future to move over so that it is American history. Martin gave us an awful lot. We will always love Martin. There will never be a replacement for Martin Luther King. But he doesn't give us all the rights for everything. We have to step up, and just like with the Baseball Hall of Fame, over a number of years, working together with people, we have some of our Black League members in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I'm hoping, and be one of the goals of the foundation, that somewhere along the line, some of the people prior to 1963, and in 1963, Henry Watkins from Pearl was named the most valuable player in the tournament and was the first all-black high school All-American. And we think that in the era from 1929 up until 1967, if you had gone beyond the state championship, that there should be some recognition of those people that played. Not necessarily everyone, but those people that played beyond. If you can have the white high schools that were named All-American and all they played was state championships, and you played a level above that to the national championship, certainly there should be some consideration for that. At this point, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back and summarize, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. Okay? So we'll take a quick. Sure, Coach Whitney.
You know, a lot of times when you start calling names, a lot of names get lost.
Yeah.
And I don't think I heard enough this morning. You may have thought about it in your mind, but it wasn't said. That you had another coach over there at Pearl who came down through the ranks and was taught by Gupton. You see, I ain't got to mention no name. I know you know what I'm talking about, don't you? That's the first point. The second point I make, I was gone in 63, 64, and 65.
Okay, we're going to take a quick 10-minute and come back and wrap this up. Thank you. We're going to take about 10 minutes to cover the reunion, but first of all, we have two people that want to speak on a legend at Pearl and about oral history, civil rights from the public library, Mr. James Harvin and Leanne Gardner. Mr. Ron Lawson Jr., would you please come forward?
First of all, I just want to thank everybody. I feel very blessed to be here today to see all these legends and all these good people here. I mean, I wasn't even born when all this stuff took place, but it's a lot. This is mind-boggling. It almost brings you to tears, and I want to thank each and every last one of you guys for coming out today. For these guys, it's a blessing to have these guys around. But what I want to announce, we just recently found out that the legendary coach William J. Gupton, who coached at Pearl High from 1938 to 1960, is going to be inducted into the TSSAA Sports Hall of Fame on Saturday, March the 18th during the boys' TSSAA state tournament. Coach Gupton won 11 state championships, and a lot of these gentlemen, particularly Booker T. White, Harry Gilmore, played under Gupton. Slim Fisher Sr. Played under the legendary Coach Ridley, but I want to make you guys aware that Gupton is going to go into the Hall of Fame. It should have been done years ago. He's a member of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, and also I spoke to Coach Dave Whitney. Somebody needs to nominate Coach Whitney for the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. I told him I'll do it if Mr. Ellis doesn't do it. I'll be glad to do it for him. But anyway, thank you guys for coming out. Come out to the reunion next week, and God bless each and every last one of you.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. James Harvin, please.
I'm only going to take a moment of your time. I'm Jim Havern from the Nashville room at the Public Library at the main library downtown. And I just wanted to take a minute to tell you about our Civil Rights Oral History project. And I believe it was Mr. Gilmore that mentioned that you just had to be there to understand what it was like. And that's true of a lot of our experiences. And at the Nashville room, we are collecting the oral histories of the people whose story reflects the desegregation of institutions, public and private, in all categories, including sports, so that we can make these available to future generations, to the public. The process usually consists of an interview that's about an hour long. If you're unable to attend personally at the library, we can do it over the telephone. And it's your story, which you remember, what you think, what you believe, so you can transfer that to other generations. So if you're interested in that, I have some forms that you can fill out that will give us some basic information. Andrea Blackman is our coordinator of this project, and she can get back in touch with you. Or you can contact the Nashville room of the Public Library. We're listed in the phone book. Also, if you have a chance and you haven't been, come on down and see that the Civil Rights Oral History Program is part of our Civil Rights Collection. And we have brochures on this if you're interested. We have a special collection in the Nashville room. It has dissertations, published works, the oral histories, photographs, and videos. So if this is of interest to you, please stop by and see us.
Thank you. Next, I would like to have my committee members, my diehard committee members, please stand up so that everyone can see you that work so hard. Please stand up. Don't be bashful. Without these people, this reunion would not have gone any place. I'm also asked to recognize the oldest player that's here from Pearl High School. We've been looking for some of our oldest guys. Would you please stand? What's that? Ted Lennox. Ted Lennox. Okay. The last thing that I have is to go over the reunion again with you. We have a luncheon. You can still buy tickets. We have about 300 tickets left. They're $16. We'll have tickets for sale at Sweats. You come in and buy your lunch. We have one half of the restaurant reserved so that we can get acquainted with those people that are just coming into town. We have a memorial service at Gordon Chapel. It's at 5 o'clock for the reception, and 6 o'clock we'll have a short memorial service. The people that are working with the memorabilia will be at Gaylord at 9:30 in the morning. The doors will open at 10. The ladies' game is at 11 o'clock. We'll set up for you. We'll have tables. There will be things that you can touch and feel. There will be things that you cannot touch and feel. We hope that you will enjoy them. Bring your cameras if you want to, and take some pictures. That pretty much will conclude the reunion. And please, if there is an opportunity for you to bring someone or whatever, just look in the booklet, look at the website. You will be able to find someone. I have my telephone number on there. We want to be represented. This is the largest group. When I talked to the special coordinator for programs, Kyle, that they've ever had. I asked him, and 500, we're looking to sell about 600 tickets. And we should have a few more people that come from out of town. This may be the first year, and if we can sign up or register for the foundation, enough people, by the 1st of June, we will continue next year. It'll be a $5, not registration, but a $5 membership to the foundation. The money will go for a 501c3 and the expenses of a website that we have had ongoing. So I would like all of your cooperation. Right now, we're going to take questions from the audience, and whoever would like to ask the panel a question, please do so.
I'd like to open it up. My question is for Walter Slim Fisher Sr. The question is, you saw the 1958-59 Pearl High two-time defending national black high school champions. You came out of Pearl in '66. Who would have won that ball game, the 59 Pearl team versus the '66 team? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I got to get your opinion.
Gentlemen, you've asked me this time and time again. Back in '59, I was slipping in the ball games then. I was hiding out in the bleachers, hoping I wouldn't get caught. That '59 team was, I'm gonna tell you something, man. I've been asked this question time and time again, and I try to roll it back and play it through in my mind. And pound for pound, spot for spot, and position for position, I think we would have matched up real close, real close. But see, there's one thing about it. At 59 team, you had Ted Swanigan. At 69, at 16, you had Hal McClain, which are cousins. As I was coaching in Miami, the first thing you do, want to start off with a big man. I always want to start off with a point guard. The point guard runs my team. But those two individuals, which I think were the best that ever come through that, it would be very difficult for me, again, at this time, to call that running, because we both ran. That was the situation at Pearl. We ran. It's one of my former coaches right here. We ran. Yeah, you know, Frank, we ran. So they ran back then. But then with your dad, with the outside shooting and everything else he did, it would have been close. It would have been close. But I'm gonna kill this one time and don't get offended. Well, we was a machine at 66. We was a machine at 66, man. And so I'm gonna say that and say, you know, hey, if we could turn back the hands of time, I would love to see what the outcome would be. If that answers your question.
Okay.
I want to ask Gilmore. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it became a reality, and the question you asked him, the 59 team, they did players at Fisk, we waxed them.
Melvin Blythe. Mr. Melvin Blythe.
I verify the fact of what Gilmore just said, but we had some 66 players out ill, so.
I want to ask
Let me point.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Mr.
go
Blythe.
ahead and finish up.
Blythe
Go ahead.
has-
I do want to point this out to this group here. It's certainly a great day today. But we need to recognize, sitting beside me is the wife of the famous coach, Mrs. Britton. So I want to recognize her. Also,
All right.
also in the back, right behind me,
Disappeared.
oh, she just disappeared, is the wife of the renowned Dave Whitney, who was coach at Byrd High School. Now, I know that I am the only person in this room that had the opportunity to be on both as an assistant coach at Byrd High School in 1962 when we played the tournament. And I came to Pearl. I left Byrd in 62, came to Pearl, and continued that winning spirit. So I was on that team to 64 team and played in the national tournament as well. 63, I believe. So I was the only guy that was there too. So I served as assistant coach at both Byrd High and Pearl. We talk about a lot of things, and we certainly have some great athletes around here. I always thought that Frank Pillar was the greatest athlete that Pearl has ever produced because of the five sports he played in, not the four. But he shot marbles too. But when you start comparing, keep in mind that this is black history. We were all segregated. Byrd High School, like Haynes High School, represented the whole county. Pearl High School represented the inner city, or just Nashville itself. So athletes in the county who lived all the way out in Nolensville or up in Hendersonville or down Cumberland City days, who were great athletes, had no way of getting home, so they didn't participate back then. It was a drawback for them. They would have certainly been great teams too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Mr. Newsom.
I've been knowing Gilmore. We was in the military together. We graduated from the same high school, but I watched Pearl. I went to all the games, from Bobby Gillum on up to Sims and all these guys. And I thought, when I saw Lawson, he's about the best basketball player I ever seen in high school.
Right.
And then when Lawson came back from that tournament, I think it was 59, I gave him the age of 1 or whatever, and I asked him, I said, who's the best player in the tournament? He said, some dude named Eddie Miles. I think, who's Eddie Miles, you know? And he's the best I ever seen. Is that true, Harry? Was Eddie Miles the best you ever seen?
Yeah,
in high
that's
school?
true.
Is it?
He hit 45 on us.
Started the morning out with 52.
He hit 52 that morning, came back that evening, hit 45. He went to University of Seattle and broke all of Elton Baylor's records.
You know, you're talking about
Played
great
in,
ball players
at the
that's
highest
been in
level.
tournaments. They had one at West Palm Beach. I can't remember his name. West Palm Beach.
Red McAllen?
Yeah. And let me tell you.
Laverne Card,
Yeah.
Red McAllen.
Yeah,
left-hander,
they had some people.
Bradley University.
Yeah. When you start talking names and when you brought all those people together, those 16 teams together, man, it was somebody was great on every one of those ball players.
People's boy was, I can't remember, but there was a lot of great players.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone else have questions?
I would just like to, I would like to echo what Mr. Black said. I had a question, and when you asked Mr. Gilmore in reference to Haynes High School, if it was because of the location and that it was a rural school versus an inner city school, and at the time those kids were bused from Nolensville or all kind of little outlying, hamlets, I guess you would call it. So I guess that would make a difference when those kids could not stay after practice, and possibly many of them had jobs. But to be on the bus and not be able to get back home, if they stayed. So do you, Mr. Black, I think,
And some
alluded
had
to
to
the
work
fact
on
that-
farms. As an example, at Byrd High School, we didn't have any feeder. We didn't have any feeder schools. We had 732 middle through high school students in the school, and sometimes you had to go home and work in the fields. And so pretty much most of these schools were kind of inner city, and as he indicated, Mr. Black indicated, if you were far out, I related some of our experiences to the Black Hoosiers. If you saw that movie from a high school perspective, and that when we went to the big dance, it was like we were in awe. We were absolutely in awe. And at Byrd, we had the year we were rated so low that we had to play in the morning a play-in game, and we barely got through it. And we came back that night with fast breaks and full court pressure. We scored 112 points in 4 8-minute quarters. So that was our determination. Any other questions? Brian.
I'll open this up for any of you guys. You still follow the game today. What are some of the major differences that you see, either positive or negative? And how do you think the teams of that era would match up with teams today, either high school teams? Yes, sir.
I got to get out to the TSLA.
Yeah.
In part, back when we were playing, we didn't have the AM1. We didn't have too much of a showtime. It was team basketball. You pass, you pick, you set, and you go. Nowadays, you got a lot of individual ball players that takes away from the collective team play effort. As being in the high school situation, this is a very big drawback, I think, of the teams that we have today. A lot of fancy stuff, but again, if you get one of them old-time coaches, you can always wipe that out. But from our time, our era to now, we had the Teddy Swanikins, we had the Hal McClains, we had the Ron Lawsons, and Ronnie did some other things too, but they were basic. I mean, to go behind the back with a Swanikin, the crowd went wild. I think he was one of the first ones I ever seen go through his leg and go around his back, and it took off from there with McClain and the rest of the guys. But we have a lot of showtime in our high school athletes now. They're good athletes, don't get me wrong. But the AM1, the through the legs, behind the back, well, you find a lot of kids standing around watching. They're not moving. And that's mine. And folks, please forgive me because I'm going to have to make an exit over here. I have another engagement, but I appreciate everything, and I'll see y'all later on at a later date.
Let me touch on that a little bit. There have been great players in every area of basketball. And it's difficult to compare them. The difference I see in the players of the day and the players of yesterday is the coach. See, we were making $1,900 a month, $2,000 a month, 26 at most. Coaches now in high school are making, some of them making $60,000 and $70,000 a month. Now, if you're going to be successful and you want to retain your job, what do? You let kids do some of the things they want to do, and you don't put that hammer on their head. And I think the difference between the ball players nowadays is more kids, they've got great talent. It's all kind of physical, athletic ability, but they don't have the kind of basis, sound, fundamental basis that kids had back then, and they don't work as hard. You got a few that do, and those are the ones that excel. But that's the big difference I see in the ball players today and yesterday.
Let me also point out something else. Fisher mentioned about the 66 team, and they going to Vanderbilt and then the Rim. Harry Gilmore and I officiated many games together in high school. We were down the road, we called good ball games, and after the game we had a cold one coming back home. So, but the one thing about the one thing about the 66 team, you know, we always think about racism. Because when they've been to that rim at Vanderbilt, I think it was either the next year or the year after that, the Federation changed the rule and took dunking out for a while. And it was just those kind of things that we could do as a team among the African-American neighborhood basketball teams that would cause rule changes. I remember, and I told this to Ted the other day, that Ridley came out with a polka dot uniform. And the very next year, the Federation ruled that you know, uniforms had to be of this made, so you could always read all the numbers. So those are the kind of things that happen in the black community in terms of basketball.
Madison played in polka dots.
Right, they certainly did.
We have a question over here.
I got an observation or comment. Okay, one of the things that I reflect back on coming through Pearl High School was it's twofold: the upperclassmen that I met, and how they set the standards for the junior guys. We were in the hall talking about sagging pants today in school and how they dressed in school today. Well, we had styles too, but one of the things that the athletes did was watch the upperclassmen, and Gilmore was one of my captains. And so they were all neat. Their tennis shoes were Chuck Taylor's Converse, and they were clean. They wore socks a certain kind of way. They even took lotion and put on their legs. They looked good. The suits fit a certain way. The shirts were never out. And so when you came along as a sophomore or junior, you had great examples to follow. The other thing was that, this is my coach right here. He coached me football, basketball, and track. And it was a lot of guys like Frank Pillar who didn't have a father. And a guy like him, these guys were our fathers. And when we got together as a team, and we went into a place like you had to wear a coat, a sport coat, we did too. And we were taught how to be young men from your husband, Coach Ridley, Harry Harrison, and Coach Black.
Yeah.
And so I give a lot of credit to these guys right here and Coach Whitney to where we are today. Because if it wasn't for Whitney, you might be messed up. So many cats were great athletes that never had a chance to display because they were thugs. These guys beat some thugs up sometimes, and they did too, and made them good boys.
That's right.
So I want to say something to Coach Black and Dave, because they had some tough kids. They had some tough kids to handle, and they did excellent jobs. And so I thank Coach in front of you guys, because if it wasn't for him, I may not be here.
I want to pay him after we leave.
Just to reinforce what was just said, because we don't have the same camaraderie with in the integrated school, we never get as close to our white teachers or our teachers today as we were to our black teachers. And that's one of the things that we lost in integration, because they were not only our teachers, they were our mentors. They picked us up and took us to school. They brought us home, and they stopped by the house to talk to your parents if you were wrong. And that's something for us to look forward to achieve. And as I said, we want to take this from black history to American history. And in doing so, we will form some of those relationships. I'm not saying that there aren't any. There are a lot of them. I have one with Coach Fisher back at Austin Peay for over 4 decades. But we need to develop more of those. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I got one thing to say. You're talking about Coach Whitney, and Gupton probably one of the best coaches, and Coach Black, but there was a name that a lot of people didn't bring up, don't know anything about, was Tisdale at Washington Junior High School. Yeah. He produced all these players like Swanigan and Buffett, Ransom, all these guys for Pearl High School. It's like Ben Joe. Ben Joe's another coach, you know. And if any recognition, you know, should be included. Those names should be included. You know.
Okay. There's one other question.
Yeah, I would just like to know, besides Byrd High School and Pearl, who are always in the tournament, what other schools out of Tennessee that was...
Booker T. Washington. I was down there the first Monday of last week. I finally found it. It is inner city school, not too far from Universal Life. They won the championship in 1962. I talked with one of the players on that team, Marion Webster, who is now the principal over at Oak Haven. They were still trying to get some people to come up and work with the school system when I last talked with them. But that's a school. See, there are a lot of schools that were like Gary Colored School or Mississippi Colored School. There are a lot of those schools that are not open anymore. Their names have changed. But I actually witnessed going to Booker T. Washington, talking to the principal. Okay. Get one of the booklets, and you'll see all of those different schools.
Lester, Hamilton.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Okay, I want to thank the panelists for being here today, and especially all of you to take your time out to share these moments with us. I can talk about this always. I love it. It's been such a big part of my life. Thank you again.
I'd also like to thank Mr. Ellis for serving as our moderator today. He did a great job, and that's a lot of work. So I appreciate that very much, and I wanted to recognize that before they get away. So thank you.